Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at the Mira Safety MB-90 PAPR system. And as always, guys, before we get this video started, if you are looking for ways to support everything that I do here on Firearm Freedom, check out those links down below in the description, and also hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any of the new content that I am dropping here on the channel. So before we dig fully into this PAPR system and kind of what it is or why you would want it and how it did at the range, I always want to give you guys full disclosure behind a product. So Mira Safety sent me this product to check out and take a look at and just tell you guys what I think of it on the channel. You guys have seen other Mira Safety stuff on the channel for gas masks and body armor plates and stuff like that. I try to always give you the most unbiased and honest content as humanly possible. You guys will also notice a link down in the description. Now, you should be aware that if you use the link down in the description, I do get a kickback, a small commission off the things that you guys purchase from that link. Of course, as I always say, if you guys are looking to support my channel and want to use that link, that is awesome. However, if you're looking to buy this stuff and you're like, man, I don't want to support that guy, then don't use the link. That's totally up to you, and I appreciate the support either way. So what is a PAPR system? PAPR stands for Powered Air Purifying Respirator. So as the name sounds, you could imagine that this setup is going to be powered. And essentially what we have here is a massive powered respirator in this whole setup and a tube that is filtering the air through these two sections. When we turn it on into, and obviously you guys can't feel this through the camera, but there is air coming out through here. Now, why would somebody want something like a powered air purifying respirator system? Well, basically, if you've never worn a gas mask before, so if you've never worn something like this before, this is a little bit of a sneak peek here. This is the CM8M that I have been doing some testing on. The release of the CM8M from Mira has been kind of pushed back a little bit. This is going to be more of a different design when it releases, an even better design. So you guys are going to be seeing some video footage with this PAPR. And the 8M, again, that's going to be dropping soon. I'll do a full video on this when it drops, and I'm super excited about that mask. But regardless, with the PAPR system, if you've never worn a gas mask before, especially if you've never worn it before with a 40 mil NBC filter, a nuclear biological chemical filter, you might not know that it is incredibly hard to do regular tasks breathing through the mask and this filter. The reason being is because it is a negative pressure setup. What that means is you, the user, are pulling all of the air with your own lung power, basically, through the filter itself. And it is pretty tough to get air through these filters, and that's because they are filtering an incredible amount of particulates out and giving you clean air through that. With the PAPR system, you have what's called a positive air setup. So if we put these filters on this PAPR system, it can obviously take, as you can see here, two 40 mil filters. However, you can just use one if you'd like to, and you can use the standard plug that's in the side of these Mira masks on the actual filter port itself, and that's just going to route everything to the one filter. And if we turn this on now, all of the air is going to be coming through this little hose section, and that's actually going to be giving you a positive seal on the mask. And it is going to be doing the breathing for you. So not only is it going to be no problem at all to breathe in this thing, we did a lot of testing and wore it for a little bit over an hour straight at the range, a little bit of a hotter range day, and although it still is semi-challenging to breathe, I mean, you're not breathing with no resistance at all, it is much, much, much easier to breathe than just the normal gas mask by a long shot. That is going to give you not only easier breathing, but it's also going to fill your mask with air. And this is an important fact because when it is filling your mask with air, it is allowing any other little particulates that could be potentially getting in if you don't have the best seal, which you always should have a good seal on a gas mask, but regardless, it's pushing the air out of the mask, and it's getting just simply a better environment for protection on a gas mask. Now, as you guys have heard a few times, when this thing turns on, it is going to have some noise. In my opinion, it reminds me almost like like one of those little shark vacuums or something like that, and everyone was laughing at me at the range because it sounded like I had a little vacuum on my backpack. So when it comes to this setup, it is designed actually originally by the Israeli Ministries of Defense for combat use or a more tactical use. We're going to get into exactly how I view this as a benefit and if it does a good job in a tactical setting. Now, it's not a cheap setup. Without the filters, you're looking at $399 for the PAPR system, and that's going to come with the actual PAPR device that's inside of this MOLLE attachment system, and it's not going to come with this MOLLE panel. It is going to come with just the standard backpack that this PAPR system is designed to run in, and it's also going to come in this green bag that the 8M is sitting on. Of course, if you want to get it with the filters, it will be somewhat of a discount to get the filters with the PAPR, but that's going to stack on about $100 more bucks. Of course, anything to do with gas masks, we're getting a lot into the what ifs. We're getting a lot into the potential situations that may happen, a lot into kind of that prepper mindset. One might argue that just having a gas mask would be all that you would need, and there's a very good argument to that. But again, if you're looking to prepare for situations where you may be walking a lot or doing a lot of physical activities with a gas mask on, and you're looking to have it easier for you to breathe, or, in my eyes, if you have someone in your family that is not used to wearing a gas mask and it's hard for them to breathe and pull air through the gas mask, this can be a really nice setup for them to use. Whenever you're looking at any sort of a gas mask for a child, that's why you'll always notice that they are somewhat of a PAPR system, somewhat of a positive forced air system. And the reason for that is because children have an incredibly hard time having the lung capacity to actually pull air through these filters. Now, some of you might be asking, well, what happens if you're using this and the batteries die? And essentially, all you have is now a standard gas mask. So you will be forcing the air with your lungs through the hose and pulling it through these filters. As it is difficult to do this, it is about the exact same as pulling the air through the mask, surprisingly. So even though you are pulling the air all the way up through the hose, it is not any more difficult, at least in my experience with my lung capacity, than pulling it through the mask. Now, the other thing is when you're looking at price point of PAPR systems like this setup in more of the Israeli style, it is going to be relatively expensive wherever you look. All the PAPR systems that I was seeing, especially the new PAPR systems, you're going to be around that $350 price point or above, depending on the system, and that may or may not come with filters, so that is always something to consider. Now, when we're looking at the actual device itself, it's relatively small, and you have your main female connection of the hose here attached to the male connection of the PAPR, and then you have a male connection attaching to, again, a female connection on the mask itself. So you have a relatively easy setup, and how this is going to come from Mira directly is in this small little green backpack thing that this is going to sit in, and your hose is going to be attached at the top of the backpack. I think this is probably the most practical way to put the PAPR system on your person. If you were looking to set the PAPR up actually on your kit on some sort of a plate carrier, you'll notice that throughout the entire time of me running this setup, I was running it on a HRT rack plate carrier, and you guys are going to be seeing back roll footage of all this stuff set up as well. I was even testing it with some night vision, and this setup actually did work for that too. But it is going to have MOLLE straps on the back. Now, these MOLLE straps do not have actual buckles, but they do kind of thread and loop through the MOLLE, and they do get set up pretty nicely, and I did not experience this thing coming off at all. There were a few relatively small issues that I saw to using this in some sort of a tactical role like that on a plate carrier or something else. And the first one was dealing with the tube mitigation. So I think if you're going to run this on a plate carrier, you have to figure out some way to attach this hose to the plate carrier shoulder strap on whatever side you're running it on your mask. When I was running this at the range, and obviously it was somewhat attached, it was still kind of wanting to flop up and down my shoulder on the side that it was looped around. So it was on my left side. This isn't as much of an issue, but when I started realizing it was going to be a problem was when the hose kind of popped right off of the mask. And the reason for that was because the gun that I was running it on, the Polish Tantal, I decided to do a drill where I switched to my non-dominant side to see how difficult or easy it would be to do that with a hose sticking out the side of the mask. Now, of course, I was able to do this just fine. However, with recoil, the hose started to slowly unthread and then pop out of the mask because the stock was rubbing against the hose, moving it back and forth. So not only do I think you have to have a pretty good hose mitigation system tying the hose to your shoulder strap to kind of help prevent that from happening, because when it did happen, of course, if you were in a situation where it was dire that you had a mask on, that would be a pretty bad day. But also, since the hose was not properly attached to my shoulder strap, it was dangling down, that you guys are going to see in the video, and it was really tough to get that hose back and kind of attach it to it. So in a situation like that, typically you would want to have your breath held at that point until you get your mask back on. This would be an incredibly hard task to do if your hose is dangling all over the place. The other thing is that it was a little bit difficult to feel when that hose ripped off, because you don't have a big filter on the side. It just kind of, you almost didn't even notice it. I think this could also be mitigated with some sort of an additional locking device on this. Now, you can make sure that it is stupidly tight. I thought it was stupidly tight, but it may have been actually a little bit looser than I thought. The seal was good and everything like that, but it may have not been tight enough. So that is something to consider, again, in a rather specific situation, a more tactical situation that you are using on your non-dominant side. Of course, we have to talk about the kind of elephant in the room when using this for a tactical situation, which is the noise. And of course, if you are trying to be kind of super spooky and quiet, that's going to be a little bit of an issue if you're trying to sneak around, because it sounds like you got a little vacuum on your person. So I think if you were in a situation where, say, you're storming a house in a team or something like that, and everybody had these on, and it was going to be a rather loud situation with any sort of distraction devices, then sure, this is probably not going to be an issue for you. If you are by yourself and you're trying to be, again, a little bit more tactile with your movements, this is going to give away your position pretty easily. So I think, again, this has maybe a little bit of a role tactically, but a much larger role with just a regular everyday person, say, trying to get out of a bad situation where there is some sort of gas in the air, or using some sort of carbon monoxide filters on the back and trying to use that with, say, fires or something like that in California, and you're doing a lot of walking, or you're trying to get out of an area and you don't want to have a really resisted breathing time, you're going to want to use something like this, and that's going to really assist in your breathing and help out a good bit. The other thing that I realized is that if you are having this on the back of your person, I did jump in the car quick, and as you can imagine, you have these filters in the back. Now this is your source of life right here. This is where all of your air is coming from. I noticed quickly that you can get into a situation where accidentally you're sitting in a car and the seat of the car is covering up these filters where all your air is coming from. So that's a big problem. But it is something to consider whenever you're running a PAPR system, exactly where these are placed. That's why I think kind of running it underneath your arm on the side of you may almost be a better spot to put it, so these don't get clogged at all. Now, as far as the battery pack on this PAPR, if we twist off this section here, you'll notice that the battery pack is right there, and it's going to require 8 AA batteries. I've had these AA batteries in here now for a few months with this testing, and I've not noticed any sort of parasitic drain or anything like that. It still has worked just fine, and I didn't notice anything as far as the batteries running out of juice at the range. It seemed to function just fine without issue. Overall, I think this is a really cool setup to have if you're just kind of like into gas masks and like messing with stuff like that, and also a cool setup for training. That is going to wrap up this first impressions video on the Mira Safety PAPR. If you guys have any other questions about this setup or anything else on the channel, please let me know down below in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out those links in the description. And as always, stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.